Hi there, I am Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide, and it is a pleasure to see you back here again. Welcome to the studio. I'm back here again. This is a continuation, the thrilling conclusion of this two-part video series on how to learn, or especially if you're a language teacher, how you should be teaching. I focus on English and fluency in particular, but the things that I'll be explaining here are applicable for teaching or learning any language. But in the last video, which you can also find, it's the previous video on our channel, where I'm talking about the great language learning lie, and you can learn more about that. I'll cover it as kind of a review very quickly because it's important to remember these things. But I spent a lot of time focusing on why students struggle and in that video and how you should be learning and explaining instant language learning as well. So I'll do a little bit of review about that just as a refresher for people, especially if you're new. So hopefully you go back and watch that video as well. But this one will explain a lot more because I did receive emails and also comments and questions from people, from other learners and teachers about how to do this for older learners, or even if you're not an older learner, it doesn't really matter what age you are, but depending on what your level is, I'll talk a little bit more about what I do as an English fluency guide and how I help people. So we'll go over a couple of things. I'll try to keep this short. Because most of this video, if you've looked at the length of it already, it's a lot of me just doing examples of how this works. So I'll be showing you part of the fluency course so you can see what it's like, that learning style, and how you should be learning instantly. I'll give you lots of examples of that. So the length of this video is mostly examples so you can see what this looks like. But just for people that do complain about the length of videos, I know people want to get to the point and know exactly what something is so they can learn some particular skill very quickly and then move on to the next thing. But remember, when you're learning a language, a lot of that is just listening and practicing with something again and again. So don't try to rush through things, or even if you think a video seems too long, part of the point is listening to the way I speak, or even going back through things. There are many books that I read again and again just because I want to get those lessons over and over again. So it's not just about the actual point I may be showing you in a video. It's also about listening, practicing, speaking with me. And so again, I'm doing all these things for a reason. Anyway, hope you enjoy this video. So in that previous video where I was talking about the great language learning lie and explaining that there are two different ways of learning a language. There is second language learning, and then there is instant language learning. And basically what I do as an English fluency guide is help people learn the language instantly. Now, this doesn't mean instant fluency, but it means connecting with the language and understanding it directly without putting lots of steps in between. So this is the current way that pretty much everybody learns a second language. And this is the second language learning system, and you can learn more about that in detail in that previous video. But basically, you begin with the lesson, and this can be whatever language point you're trying to learn. And then all of these steps here are like filters that you work through before anything actually gets to the student. So the biggest one, the most dangerous one that I talk about, is learning something through a second language. So if you are learning English and you're learning it through Portuguese or Chinese or Japanese or whatever the language is, that's going to change the language, and over time, you basically receive a different language when you're in the classroom. So the language that's actually spoken on the streets is different from what the student hears. And because of this, you have to actually go back through these same steps. You have to think about grammar rules and translate in your head, or think about your pronunciation, or you have to translate things, basically all these different things, all of the problems that students struggle with, to go back through these steps to get to the language again when you want to learn. So basically, it's creating all of these problems for no real reason other than people thinking that there's such a thing as a second language. Now, I don't want to repeat that video, but that's the general idea of it. Because people believe there's such a thing as a second language, they think there's a need for such a thing as second language learning. Now, when I finished that video, I gave an example about how you should be teaching that, so that was really specifically for teachers, but a lot of students enjoyed that as well. And I gave a Japanese lesson using instant language learning principles in order to help people understand and learn some basic Japanese. But many people were asking me, okay, that's great, so you can do that with kids or beginners, but how does that help me? So that's what this video is talking about. And whether you're a teacher or a student, hopefully it'll be interesting for you, and I'll teach you a lot about how you should be helping people learn or how you should be learning yourself. So as I explained in that video, just a very quick detail about what that means, and this isn't like a really detailed graph, but when I try to explain this to students, I really want to make it clear that what they're doing, it's the difference between learning a language, which is understanding the rules of something, like being able to explain like a translation of something. So I could say what one word is in Japanese and say this word means this. So that's language learning. But right up here, we're talking about language acquisition, which means actual fluency. So F here, really, this is my just basic understanding or just a basic maybe explanation of how fluency develops. So at the beginning here, you really have two options. So this is maybe right at the very first lesson you're beginning, you have two choices. You can do the second language way, and then you can learn the language, or you can do the instant way, and this is how you actually develop the acquisition, or how you actually acquire the language and become able to speak it. So you notice that over time, this begins to separate. And so this is why it becomes more and more difficult as people get older. So maybe this is year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, we continue on. And many people who are, 60 years old or something, they've been learning the language, the second language learning way this whole time. And so they know a lot of information, but they can't use it properly. And this space, this area, what I call here, is called the fluency gap. So this is the difference between your ability to understand something and your ability to use that information correctly and automatically when you speak. So what I do as an English fluency guide is help people move from this level of understanding to this level up here. And it's easier the closer you are to the beginning. So this is why if I'm helping little kids from the very beginning, I can start out with instant language learning lessons like I did in that previous video. And we can already begin speaking, and fluency begins developing right from the very first lesson. And the reason it develops is because you're able to understand everything automatically without having these steps in between. So again, if this is the second way or the second language learning system, what I do, I remove all these steps and I just connect the learner directly to the lesson. And if you missed that video, again, go back and watch that. It's very important, whether you're trying to learn a language yourself or you're trying to help other people learn one. So because you can understand the language directly, you can also communicate in the language. And I'll talk more about why that's so important in this video. But again, this is the general idea here. So you have two different ways. This is second language learning here, and this is instant language learning. And you can see over time how they create two very different learners. And this is why you can have a child in America that's doing the instant way of learning. This is how people naturally learn their native language. And then you have other students who are living in the same country, but using second language learning lessons. And this is why you have this gap, the fluency gap that I call this, again, difference between being able to understand a language and being able to speak it. So my job, what I do specifically, is not trying to give people more lessons down here. I don't want to teach you more of the language. I want to help you understand the language. So it's not about kind of learning more. It's about moving up like this. And if you learn it the right way, like I'm teaching you in these lessons, it becomes a lot easier to do that. So let's see how that works. You've already learned the first part of that, which is instant language learning, which means to connect directly with something rather than trying to learn through lots of rules and trying to memorize things the way you would sit and look through flashcards and try to kind of go through them over and over again. And these are the things, basically the way a computer would learn. So this is almost like computer learning down here, and this is human learning up here. So it's much easier if you actually learn the way humans learn. And as I mentioned, I went into detail into that, or in that video, and I was talking about how humans basically learn through stories and puzzles. So if you show part of a piece of information, we can make that connection actually like a puzzle piece like this. If I give you this and show you this other piece over here, your brain will automatically try to put them together. And this is how you make instant language learning happen. And again, I show in that video how that works. So the first part of it is instant language learning, and now I'll talk about the second part of it that I did not talk about in that video, and this is the law of 80-20. Now, just to give you a very brief overview of this, This is a general law, and it can be like 80-20 or it can be 70-30. It doesn't really matter what exactly it is, but basically it's the idea of a power, like a power law, or, excuse me, where we assume that within a group of things that all those things are not created equal. You can have, let's say, a team of basketball players. Some of them are going to be not very good over here and they don't make very much money, but the top players are going to be up here and they make a lot of money. So in general, this works for anything. You can choose any group of things where maybe you can have a team of basketball players, or we could have the number of maybe 100 streets in a city. We have the few city streets that are downtown, and this is where all the traffic is. So we can plot the traffic in a city on this same curve. So this is a power curve, and this is the principle of 80-20. So if we split this into 10 groups, then we can have maybe 80% of it down here, which is maybe going to do a little bit well or make a little bit of money on the basketball team or have a little bit of the traffic, but 20% up here is going to have most of that traffic. Now, the reason this is such an important idea to remember is because it works for languages as well. And so when we're learning something like this, maybe you remember, like if you've had to study for some kind of difficult test, even native speakers have to do something like the SAT in the United States. This is the Standard Aptitude Test. I believe that's the name. It's been a while, but it's an exam to get into college. And so there are many words that students learn that you really just don't use in everyday life. And so in the same way that we can have like 20% of the basketball players make 80% of the money, or you can talk about 20% of the roads having 80% of the traffic. There are lots of examples of this, but it's very, very common in language learning as well, because only 20% of the vocabulary is used 80% of the time. So if you think about all the words that you know and that you use in your everyday life, it's mostly the same things that you talk about with people again and again. You know, how's your family, how's work, how's your boyfriend or girlfriend or your wife or whatever. And it's all these things that we talk about again and again, which means that when you're learning a second language, if you don't waste your time focusing on this information over here, if you just learn this, it becomes a lot faster for you to take this information and learn it really to become a fluent speaker much faster, because you're not wasting time talking about all these other things or learning all these other words that you don't know. So even it's the same thing in your native language, whatever language you speak, over the course of your life, you've learned maybe, many thousands of different words, but how much of that do you actually use when you speak? And the truth is, it's the same for native English speakers because of this idea of 80-20. Now, what's really interesting is that we can continue to take 80-20. Let's say this whole thing is 100%. So this is 80% here, and this is 20% over here. Now we can take this 20% also, and again, cut it into 20% here and 80%. And again, it's the same rule that applies. So like the top 5% of the whole thing gets, like, I forget, maybe 84% or something like that, some high number. I'm bad with the math. I'm great with the English teaching, but bad with the math. Anyway, you can continue to find this number until you really get the very tiny amount of words that if you just spend a little bit of time studying that, then that's what's going to help you become a fluent speaker much faster. Isn't that great? And this is why you can learn a language quite quickly if you just focus on the things that are used more often than anything else. And especially when learning English, you focus on the most common conversational speech, because learning the kinds of difficult words that you would find on a test, it's just not really something you would use in a conversation anyway. So if the point is fluency, you begin by developing here. Again, we're trying to think about instant language learning and developing for fluency as opposed to just learning a whole bunch of words. Does that make sense? So this is how you can take this idea of instant language learning, and again, in that video, if you watch that one again, you'll see how I'm giving an example of doing this basically by just teaching some simple vocabulary and explaining how adjectives work, just by showing how that works without having to tell you that, okay, adjectives come before nouns in Japanese grammar. I can show you what that is, and your brain, again, understands the puzzle without me having to explain it. So at the higher level, for people like this, like who have already been learning for years over here and know a lot of the language, but can't communicate This is where they need, things like stories and other explanations, and I'm making more interesting connections. It's still the instant language way of learning, but it's not as, basic as just like showing how something works. But again, this is how we would learn things even as an adult native English speaker. I'm still learning in the exact same way that I teach. I hear an interesting story, it's memorable, it helps me remember the information, and then there are other ways I do this as well, but that's just one example of it. So this idea is really important. You're combining these two things, and if you're able to do that, it's a really fantastic way to learn. You've got the instant way of learning, but you're also just focusing on a very small amount of vocabulary. And one last point about 80-20, that it's not just for vocabulary itself. It's also for the kinds of mistakes that you make. So let's say we make this grammar or make this graph instead of vocabulary words here, like instead of this is, 8,000 or 10,000 vocabulary words, these are the top 10 mistakes that you make in your grammar. Really, only the top 20% here, so maybe top 2 mistakes that you make, if you can focus on what those are and you can fix that, it doesn't really matter what these other ones here are. I mean, you might still make them, but they're not very rare because these are the ones that you make most often. So if you can solve these problems, then that's what's going to help you become a much more confident speaker. And it's the same thing with pronunciation as well. You might have a few different errors in the way you pronounce things. Some of them are very rare, but some of them are very obvious, and you make them very often. So if you can solve these things, if you learn the 80-20%, if you basically apply this principle not only to vocabulary, but how you learn, the mistakes you make, the way that you're trying to learn grammar, it's the same thing. Like we've got 10 different grammar points, and 20% of those are going to be used much more often than this amount over here. So this is why it's really important to find out what these things are, and that's the kind of thing you can discover from someone like me or other teachers when you're learning. So hopefully these two ideas make sense. Again, we've got instant language learning, which is learning the language the same way a native would be learning it, but really it just means connecting with the language without having these additional steps here. That's the important thing. And then on top of that, you apply the rule of 80-20 to know where to focus. So this is how to learn, and this is what to learn. Does that make sense? Hopefully that does. So as a teacher, you should be thinking about this. And really the way to understand this is just looking at conversations or seeing how people are communicating. And this is exactly what I do with people when I help them learn. So we'll talk now about this exactly. How do I help somebody learn? And really the secret, all I'm really doing is using video to apply these two principles. And I'm the only person I'm aware of that actually does this. So a lot of people, like they do teach vocabulary and they can tell stories, but focusing on both of these things to make sure you're understanding everything the native way. So really understanding things the instant way, the same thing you're learning for pronunciation, for grammar, all these different things, you're learning them without all these additional steps, but you're also focusing on the most important things, then that gets you fluent incredibly quickly. Does that make sense? So often people, it's an interesting thing. So I get questions from people about how do I teach people using video? And many people are actually very surprised. They want to know, how do videos actually help me speak? Now, this is a really great question because you can watch so many videos that teach you this way. And you think, well, that didn't help me speak at all. And the reason most videos, I'd say 99% of videos don't really help you speak, whether you're watching them on YouTube or courses, it doesn't matter what they are. It's because they're still teaching you this way instead of using the instant way of learning the language. So if they're doing anything, if you watch any videos online that are telling you something like, let's do a gap filling exercise about we're going to write something down and try to figure out what grammar point goes in that space, I mean, that can be a little bit helpful, but most often it's just really teaching you the grammar rule as opposed to helping you use the grammar rule in an everyday way without being able to think about it or without having to think about it. So when you're looking at the two different kinds of video learning you can do, it's not that video doesn't help you learn, but if you're learning actually the instant way, video is really fantastic for that because it's showing you how something works. You can see it. It's really the right way to see, the way I'm communicating, but also for English, you can tell my intonation. the way I'm moving or just the way I'm communicating everything, because it's not just the words I say, it's the whole thing. My intonation and body language, whether I'm being sarcastic or whether I'm not, just by the way I'm moving, even small things like that are very important for a learner. So when people ask me, how do I actually help them speak using video? Really, the truth is that it's just teaching them the instant way rather than just teaching them a bunch of rules like that. And if you learn this way, basically it cascades. So it becomes easier each time you do it. And at the very first thing, when you're learning the instant way through English, you understand everything through that kind of video. So through the videos I teach, you begin by understanding it automatically. So that way you don't have to think about things like when you watch like a traditional second language learning video lesson, it's telling you information, but not helping you understand that. And so that's basically where your learning stops. You think, okay, this grammar point is this, and I'm going to try to remember some verb conjugations or something like that. And so I'm only just learning more and more pieces of information, but I'm not making it up here. And over time, you're moving further away from fluency. So people over here, you have like this person up here, maybe both of them live in Brazil, but like one of them is actually just increasing in fluency every day because they're simply learning, even if they don't speak. And that's the amazing thing about this. The point is just understanding. And I remember when I discovered Stephen Krashen, I won't go into a lot of detail about him, but he discovered the same thing. And he, like, when I realized, oh, wow, like I was reading and even just watching videos about that, about language acquisition, and he discovered the same thing. It's about understanding things really easily. And because you understand very easily, because you connect directly with the information, this is what helps you speak. This is what gives you the confidence. Hey, I understand that, so I want to use that thing. And it's not knowing the information, it's understanding. It's the difference between learning and the acquisition, being able to use that information. So this is the difference between what we do, and that's what I'm going to show you right now for the Your Turn section. So hopefully this wasn't too long. I wanted to give a general introduction to this. But these ideas are really important. So you're taking instant language learning, and in this case, you're going to see me give some examples, basically telling stories and showing things before you get to see it, how it actually looks in a real conversation. So you can combine both of these ideas, and this is just one part of what I do in things like the Fluency course, which you can learn more about by clicking on the link in the upper right. But really, just for now, I want you to enjoy this video where you get to watch, again, I'm going to explain a whole bunch of different vocabulary the instant way. So hopefully you'll understand all of these things, especially if this is you here. So you know a lot, but you're not really communicating a lot. My job will be to help you move up here, and you'll move up this way as you start understanding things. And then because you're understanding, you feel more excited, you want to learn more, you want to speak more. And then in the lessons, actually, you know, in the full program, so I teach you how to speak, so you're practicing speaking with the videos, and then I show you how to actually meet people to practice with native speakers in the real world. Isn't that great? So anyway, this is basically how the system works. It's really very simple, and this is what you should be doing as a teacher if you're trying to help people learn. So you remember these two different tracks of people. Either you're trying to prepare someone for a test and you just want them to memorize some information, that's okay, but they're not going to be speaking up here. If you want them to actually communicate, and really they can take tests and do well, so I don't know why more people don't teach this way. We know this is the way you should be learning, but so many people just don't. I guess it's just really difficult to figure out a good way to do it, but this is how you do it. So you combine instant language learning with the idea of 80-20, so you know what to focus on, and then really you just go through and learn it the instant way. So really when you're learning with videos, and people, especially if you've been watching videos for a long time, or even if you're still watching videos right here on YouTube and you wonder, I just watched 20 videos today, why don't I speak more? It's most likely because you are learning with this kind of video here that's telling you information, but not giving you information or a way that's connecting you directly with the language to help you speak. So it's not about watching video, that videos are like always a bad way to learn. It's that some videos are going to be helpful and some videos are not. So really what I do, again, is helping people understand the instant way using the principle of 80-20, so you connect directly with the information rather than just trying to give you more knowledge like that. So now what we're going to do, we're going to get to your turn where you practice. And as you listen to this, you can watch this video many times. First, just listen to my explanations as I talk about things. I'll explain some stories. And then after that, you'll see how all of these things come together in a conversation. So it'll be a lot of fun. You'll get to see how this works. And again, I'm showing you how this works the same way a native English-speaking child would learn it. And this is for, again, these adult learners or people who've been learning for a long time but still can't speak. So you'll probably learn quite a bit of new information as well as hear the pronunciation of it. So you'll see how I do instant language learning pronunciation as well. So this is another thing without trying to use some kind of rules like the International Phonetic Alphabet that's just going to waste your time and make it more difficult for you to get to fluency. So if you like this way of learning, fantastic. You're probably watching the wrong YouTube channel right now, but if this is you up here, you want to move from here to here, enjoy this, and I will see you at the end of that. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to this month's Phrase Builder lesson. It's a pleasure to welcome you back to the program if you've been with us for a while, and hello if you're new. This month I've got something very excited planned. You've already learned a whole bunch of great phrasal verbs in the grammar focus lesson, and this lesson will be talking, as we normally do, just about the longer phrases and actually some of the easier things as well, but simple words and then longer expressions from the lesson set. And then in the Fluency Corner lesson, we'll talk more specifically about baking, because this month we're in the kitchen, we're baking, we're having some fun and doing a lot more visual things than we normally do. So I thought it would be a fun lesson set, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of great phrases as we always do. So let's get started. Our first word is pertinent. Listen carefully to the pronunciation of this word. Pertinent, pertinent, pertinent. So a pertinent thing just means applicable. So if you're asking questions, maybe I focus on teaching English or helping people learn, but other people are asking me questions about finance or how to change the oil in their car, I would say those aren't really, pertinent questions. It's not really something I can answer because I don't really have much authority in that, in those areas. So if you want to ask me a pertinent question, a more pertinent question would be, how do I master grammar more quickly, or how do I improve my pronunciation? So those are pertinent questions for me. So pertinent just means applicable or relevant. Pertinent, pertinent, pertinent. Next, this is a word you probably know already, super, but in the way that native speakers use it, you might not be familiar. Now, we can use super when we're talking about, just the average definition of the word to mean above or over something else. So if you're ever watching a movie, you've got the, actually we have right in here when we're showing things on these videos, or when you're watching videos online, you'll see subtitles. So sub just means below. It's like a submarine, so submarine that's under the water. We've got subtitles below and above, like if you go to the opera or something like that, they will have, it's an opera that's being sung in Italian, but most of the audience is maybe English speaking if it's in America, so they will have super titles, and that's just the meaning of having the words that are coming across the screen above the play as opposed to down below. So people usually have subtitles because maybe there's not so much happening at the bottom of the screen, and it's more important to have something at the top in maybe an opera because you don't want to have, it's kind of the opposite problem. Anyway, super just means above or better than something else, so that's where we get the idea of Superman from. But in regular conversations, we just talk about something being super cool or super fun or super badass or super intelligent or something like that. It just means very, but in a more conversational way. So to say something is super great or super fun, you're really sounding a bit more native, or much more native actually, and you're just saying very. So super, super. Next, trustworthy, trustworthy. To be trustworthy means to be worthy of trust. This means that other people can know they can trust you. Maybe I establish a new business and I don't really have many customers because people don't know if they can trust me or not. Hopefully you feel you can trust me to do what I say I'm going to do. And so when you're starting a new business or something like that, you have to develop trust. You have to build trust with people. So you do something for them, they do something for you, and that's how you build trust. But after you've built trust, you become trustworthy, worthy of being trusted by someone, trustworthy. Next, old school, old school. I believe this is something I've covered before in the program, but because it comes up so often in conversations, I thought I would review it again. When something is old school, we're kind of comparing it to something that's newer or modern or the latest thing. So maybe I'm an old school writer who actually uses a typewriter to write. So I like typing on an old typing machine, not a computer. So a new school person or a modern person, we actually don't use the term new school very much. Old school is much more commonly heard. But again, we're just comparing something that's modern versus something that's traditional or older. And usually it's something that people feel very strongly about. It's a traditional thing they're passionate about. Maybe I like the sound or the feel of a typewriter rather than the keys on a computer, something like that. So I'm an old school writer. I'm an old school teacher. I'm an old school, gym instructor or something like this. It just means I prefer, traditional rules or fundamentals or foundational principles rather than some, amazingly new thing that maybe is, just it looks fancy, but maybe it's not as good as the older thing. Old school, old school. Next, another thing that appears frequently in conversations, indeed, and you'll actually see this a lot in this month's lesson set. When you say indeed, you're just agreeing with someone when they say something. So one person may say, wow, it's like really hot here, and you say, indeed. This is a very basic example, but really you're accenting that thing, you're agreeing with that thing, and you're making it sound more important. Ah, indeed, indeed. So this person working for the company, maybe they say, we have these problems and this is maybe not such a good idea, and you want to agree with them. A very easy way is just, indeed, indeed. But, you'll see this in the conversation just to get a lot more examples because it does appear quite frequently in this month's conversation. Listen carefully for indeed, indeed. Our next word is accumulate. Accumulate. This is a great word that just means to collect a lot of things or to build up a big mass of something. So if you have a lot of snow falling overnight, the snow is accumulating. So the snow is falling and it's, getting higher and higher, more and more snow to accumulate snow. Or you can accumulate money. So every day I am like making more money. I'm putting more money into my bank account or my savings account. I am accumulating more money. Accumulate. Accumulate. Next, another great expression, time consuming. Time consuming. To consume something means to eat that thing or to absorb that thing. You can think about consuming food, or people that go out and shop, these are known as consumers. So in regular economic terms, we've got consumers and we've got producers. So producers are, like in this example right here, maybe you have a different job or you're a housewife or, a lawyer or, whatever your job is. But right now, you are consuming this information. So even if you don't, eat this information, you are absorbing it. It is going into your mind. So you are consuming this information and I am producing this information. So when something is time consuming, it eats time. It eats time. So as an example, maybe I have to make these lessons and the editing of the lessons is really time consuming. It takes a really long time to edit lessons. So making the lessons is actually really quick, but the editing of lessons, making sure everything works well and all the planning and all that, that's what's really time consuming. Now I love doing it because perfect planning, if I can plan really well, then I can execute and have a really great lesson, but it's time consuming. Time consuming. Next, to be bad about. To be bad about something. This is a fantastic, natural, conversational way of saying that you don't do something well or that you don't do it as well as you should do it. In a very typical example, I actually don't like to untie my shoes when I take them off. So I'm bad about untying my shoes when I take them off. So when I put them back on again, I don't untie them. I just try to jam my foot back into the shoe. You'll actually see this a lot if you're Japanese or if you come to Japan, because people take their shoes off when they go inside or outside of their homes or offices or wherever they happen to be. And anytime you have to take your shoes off, people rarely untie them. So people will just kind of slip out of their shoes and slip back in, And so the backs of the shoes are really bad because people are, obviously people don't want to take the time. It's a little time consuming to try to untie your shoes and tie them again. So I'm usually pretty bad about untying them and not tying them. You could be bad about lots of things. You could be bad about listening. Maybe I'm in school and I'm just, I'm daydreaming. I'm thinking about, wow, I wish I was at the beach right now. Oh yeah, that would be fun. And the teacher is talking to me, so I'm bad about listening. You can be bad about anything, but really it just means that you're not doing something well or as well as you should be doing it, to be bad about something. Next, and listen carefully to the pronunciation of this word, sensual. Sensual. Now, sensual, we're talking about the senses, like the sense of touch. Sensual is, it's kind of like a sexy idea where maybe I've got some sensual fabric. It's very soft, silk or something like that. But sensual just means it's very, like pleasing to the senses. So especially the physical sense of touch, like I can get a sensual massage where I'm getting like a nice massage. These are my own hands, but just the same, I'm getting a nice massage, a very sensual massage, as opposed to getting, punched in the face by somebody or punched in the head. So sensual just means pleasing in a physical way. Sensual. All right, moving on to our longer phrases and expressions from this lesson. The first one is a match made in heaven. I really love this expression, and this is when you take two things and put them together such that they are a perfect match. As an example, a lot of Americans, they eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or maybe you have, peanut butter and chocolate, or maybe you prefer a combination of some other food. It doesn't have to be just food though. You can talk about like a drink and the beach. It's like a match made in heaven, or you're talking about this guy and this girl, or these people getting together to have a relationship, like this famous movie star and that famous movie star, and they get together to form a match made in heaven. So if you think about heaven is like a perfect place, and heaven is creating perfect things. So a match made in heaven means it was made in heaven because it's such a perfect thing. A match made in heaven. A match made in heaven. Next, to owe someone a favor. To owe someone a favor. When people do things for each other, we owe each other a favor. So a friend of mine picks me up from the airport when I'm coming to visit him, and I want to pay him back for having done that. So I say, hey, I owe you a favor. I owe you a favor. Or you can ask someone, hey, like, since you owe me a favor, could you take me to the airport? Or could you, pick me up from school? Or could you, drive my car for me somewhere? Or could you lend me, your car or something like that? So to talk about owing someone a favor, or that they owe you a favor, it's just a way of saying that the favor is like the thing that they have to do for you, or the thing that you have to do for them. Presumably because you have a good relationship, you are both trustworthy, and you are both working together to do something. So to owe a favor, or to do a favor for someone else. Hey, can you do me a favor? Could you do me a favor? I need help doing something. So this is another great way, again, this idea of a favor when you're just asking for someone to do something for you, and maybe it's not that big of a deal. So it's not that important. Hey, could you do me a favor and take the trash out for me? Could you do me a favor and buy some milk when you come to my house? Something like that. To do me a favor, or to owe me a favor. Next, this is a great advanced expression, ulterior motive. An ulterior motive. Ulterior motive. Listen carefully to the pronunciation. Ulterior, ulterior, ulterior. An ulterior motive is the real reason or another reason why you're doing something. So maybe I want to help a friend of mine, and like I want to help him move, something like that. So I'm going to his house and I'm very excited and I really want to help him move, and he's very impressed with my work. I'm really working hard. I'm carrying boxes and doing all this stuff, working really hard. But really my ulterior motive, the real reason I'm helping him, the other reason, the secret reason, is because he has a really cute sister and I'm trying to impress her with how strong I am and how much work I can do. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it is, but it really just means a secret reason, something that only you know, or the real reason that you're doing something. An ulterior motive. An ulterior motive. Next, fun fact. Fun fact. Now, the pronunciation of this depends on how you're using it in a sentence. So I could begin a sentence with, hey, fun fact. So fun fact, I'm raising the sound of my voice, the pitch, the tone of my voice. Hey, fun fact, some lizards can, detach their own tails when they're in trouble. So a lizard is, crawling across the ground, and maybe some bird or something tries to catch the lizard, and the lizard shakes off its own tail, and the tail continues to move around, and the bird or something eats the tail, and then the lizard can crawl away and not die, not be killed. So fun fact, this is just something we use when we want to say, hey, here's an interesting bit of trivia for you, and we usually connect this with something that's happening in the situation. So if I'm baking and I'm saying, oh, like I'm baking this thing, fun fact, you can, use a banana peel to shine your shoes or something like that. So I'm connecting something like that, but instead of just saying, hey, here's, just some other information for you. Fun fact is something that's been taken from television shows, because they'll have a little like, hey, here's a fun fact, here's a fun piece of information. So then we take that and it becomes part of normal everyday conversations. Here's a fun fact, if you study English, you're going to improve. If you study English, you're going to improve. You probably know that already, but usually this is, again, I'm just giving you an example of using fun fact in a sentence. Fun fact, fun fact. Next, related to fun fact, we've got you learn something new every day. You learn something new every day. Now, this is a straight phrase that you can use and just say it exactly how I'm saying it now. You learn something new every day. Wow, you learn something new every day, and the meaning of it is exactly what you think it is. So to learn something new every day just means, actually you do learn maybe a new thing every day, but this is a specific phrase that we use when you learn some interesting piece of information that you didn't know before or that you hadn't thought about. So when I'm cooking with someone, as you'll see in the lesson, when we're having the conversation, maybe I'm getting an example of, oh, you can cook, something with a toaster oven, but I didn't know you could do that. So I say, wow, you learn something new every day. You learn something new every day. So it's a way of kind of thanking the person for what they say, but it's also kind of a joking way of saying, wow, like that was some good information you just gave me there. So you learn something new every day. And hopefully, you can actually say that with me. So right now, hopefully you're learning some phrases that you hadn't heard before. And as you're learning these, you can actually say to yourself, or you can say out loud, you learn something new every day. You learn something new every day. Next, to get your hands dirty. To get your hands dirty. To get your hands dirty, if you actually think about the physical origin of this phrase, where you're putting your hands into dirt and, getting them dirty. Right now, my hands are very clean. I like to have clean hands when I'm making videos. I don't want to get the equipment dirty. So when you're talking about actually getting your hands dirty, it means you're willing to do hard work. Now, physically, you'll see me do this in the conversation. I'm kind of making a joke about this by saying I don't mind getting my hands dirty because I'm actually putting my hands in the cookie dough and actually getting them, unclean, so making them a little bit messy. But in a regular conversation, you could talk about, I don't like to get dirty, or I don't like to get my hands dirty, or I like to get my hands dirty when you're talking about physical work, or, if you're maybe like a classic example of this you'd see in movies, like if you have like one good guy against like a whole bunch of bad guys, and usually the top bad guy, he doesn't like to get his hands dirty with the actual fighting with people. So you'll see like the mob boss or like the top bad guy, he has other guys, like the lower guys in the group, do all of the dirty work. So do all of the things that are, the real like physical thing of actually punching or hurting other people. So they're doing the dirty work, and the top guy doesn't have to get his hands dirty. To get your hands dirty. Next, oh my goodness, or oh my God. Now you'll hear this a lot in conversations when people are just really surprised by something, or they're really excited about something. You'll see it everywhere, and you can use, any one of these phrases. You can say, oh my goodness, oh my God, or oh my gosh. It depends, some people maybe, for religious reasons, they don't want to say oh my God, but they will say oh my gosh. It just means the same thing. But again, it's just something you would say, oh my God, look at that alien up there. So again, I'm being, I'm getting people's attention. I'm saying, wow, look at that thing. I'm really surprised. Oh my God. I'm like looking at God. It's amazing. So if I just saw a squirrel walking in the park, I wouldn't say, oh my God, it's a squirrel, because you see a squirrel all the time. There's nothing amazing about that. But if I see a flying ostrich, like a lion flying in that would be, oh my God, right there. Oh my God. Next, to get bent out of shape. Now listen carefully to how this sounds when I blend it together. To get bent out of shape. To get bent out of shape. Bent out of shape. Bent out of shape. When you have something like my hand, let's say this is a piece of metal. Now if I hit this really hard, I can bend it, something like that. Like if I'm in a car accident and I get hit and the metal of the car gets bent, something like this. So right now it is in the shape it's supposed to be, but I am bending it out of shape. So when you get bent out of shape, the physical idea, and I talk about this a lot, all of the words and phrases that you're learning, they pretty much all have some kind of physical origin. And if you can understand this idea of physically being bent out of shape, then you can understand the higher level idea of a person being bent out of shape when maybe, something they don't like happens to them. So I got all bent out of shape. I got bent out of shape when, people were saying, hey, I don't like your clothes or something like that, or I hate your haircut or whatever, and I get angry about that. It just means to get maybe frustrated or upset or angry, or any situation, any feeling that's different from your normal, everyday, pleasant feeling. So usually I'm pretty happy. Yeah, I'm a happy guy. But, yesterday I got bent out of shape because, I had some problems and I wasn't feeling very good. So I was like this normally, but then I was bent out of shape, bent out of shape, bent out of shape. Next, you'll see me do this in the conversation when I'm kind of taking a Bugs Bunny joke and I say, 1 for you, 1, 2 for me. 1 for you, 1, 2 for me. And you'll see this a lot when you're watching movies. People will take a reference from a TV show or some other popular culture thing, and then they will use it in the movie. And you might not understand what they're actually talking about, even if you can understand 1 for you, 1, 2 for me. It just means I'm actually talking about a Bugs Bunny cartoon, and I just want to make sure you understand what this means. So in the Bugs Bunny cartoon, Bugs Bunny is with, and you can probably even find this on YouTube if you look for it, like Bugs Bunny and gangsters, or Bugs Bunny like 1 for you, 1, 2 for me. So he is getting some money from some gangsters, and he keeps putting these different hats on, and the gangster guy is saying, here you go, $1 for you, and then 1 for me. And like Bugs Bunny is like, don't forget me, boss, don't forget me, boss. And so he says so the mobster keeps giving Bugs Bunny all this money. So this is just another example of like 1 for you, 1, 2 for me. I'm giving you something, but I'm taking something like twice that amount back for myself. But again, this is just one example of the thing that you'll see in conversations where people are taking other ideas and using them in a normal conversation as a reference to something else. And it just is something that you have to study, and you have to just start understanding more of popular culture. So you can learn words and phrases, but the more you spend time with native speakers, and the more you at least start watching the things that are popular in popular culture now, like new movies that are coming out, or just following what's trending on Twitter, other things like that, the more you will learn things that are actually happening, and you'll be able to understand those and even use them yourself in conversations. Next, I wish I had known. I wish I had known. This is a great phrase you can use when you're saying, if only I had known that information before. So I wish I had known. I wish I had known. I wish I had known. Or you can say, I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known. So a friend of mine and I are both going to the same party, and we both wear the same dress. Like, oh no, like I have the nice red dress on and she has a nice red dress on. Like, why am I wearing a dress? But anyway, so we're both going to the same party. I wish I'd known you were going to wear that dress, because I would have worn a blue dress or whatever, or some pants, I should be wearing some pants. I don't know. But anyway, so in this example, I wish I had known. I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known that something something. So whenever you're talking about, I wish I had that information before, this is something you can practice as one phrase, I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known. Next, another great phrase. There's so many great phrases in this lesson. I'm really excited about this lesson set. So this one is equal to the task. Equal to the task. When somebody gives you some work and you're able to do that work, you can say you are equal to the task, or I am equal to being able to do whatever that work happens to be. I'm equal to the task. I'm equal to the task. So if my mom says, "Hey Drew, can you clean the kitchen and vacuum the floor and, whatever," I can say, "Sure, Mom, I can do that." Or I could say, and sound a bit more interesting and conversational, I could say, "I'm equal to the task. I'm equal to the task." Next, another great phrase, if you don't mind. If you don't mind. Now, to mind, you're thinking about like the mind inside your head, or the understanding of thoughts and mind, that kind of thing. But to mind, this is the verb. To mind something means to think about it, or, to give it some kind of thought, whatever that is. Like maybe I have a fly buzzing around my head and I don't mind. I don't think about the fly. I don't notice it. I don't care. It's not troubling me, so I don't mind the fly buzzing around me. But maybe I do. I see a fly like, flying around me, and like I start trying to catch the fly or swat the fly. So I do mind having a fly around me. I am thinking about that. I do care about having that thing, to mind that thing. So when you're asking for a favor, like I'm saying, "Hey, could you do me a favor?" I can also say, "If you don't mind, could you please do this?" Or, "If you don't mind, could you please do this?" If you don't mind. Next, this reminds me of. This reminds me of just means that it's really just a phrase you can say, but this is connected to something that happened in the past, or something else even in the present that you're thinking about. This reminds me of the time I went to the beach and I was like teaching some Japanese students on the beach. So this lesson reminds me, this video reminds me of when I was doing that. This reminds me of. This is another one of those phrases that you learn as a whole thing. This reminds me of. This reminds me of. And then you could say something like, "This reminds me of the time I did this." This reminds me of when I did that. So this reminds me of the time I played baseball and, it was raining really hard. So right now it's raining. So this rain reminds me of the time when we went to a picnic or had a picnic and the rain started falling. It started raining a lot. This reminds me of. This reminds me of. Next, back in the day. Back in the day. Listen carefully. We're going to blend this again. Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. I want to start singing. I think that was actually like I forget the song, but something like that. Back in the day. It just means, a long time ago. Now, this is something that usually younger people, I would say maybe like 30-year-olds, maybe 40-year-olds would use this, but maybe 60, 70-year-olds would probably not use this phrase in conversational English. But even if you are over 70 years old, I'm teaching you things like this so you can understand them when you hear them in movies or conversations or whatever. So younger people will say, "Wow, back in the day, we used to do this," or "Back in the day we had huge cell phones like this. Now we've got like a tiny thing." So back in the day just means a long time ago or many years ago. Back in the day. Back in the day. Next, go nuts. Go nuts. Now, to be nuts means to be crazy, but in this conversational way of using go nuts, we're talking about being free to do something. As an example, I bake a cake for a friend of mine, and I have another friend that is supposed to decorate that cake. So they're going to put a design or some stuff on the cake, and they say, "Oh, what design would you like, or what should I do to decorate the cake?" And I say, "Go nuts. Go nuts." And this is telling them that they are free to do whatever they like with the cake. So they can put lots of decoration or interesting design or something silly. I really don't care. Or if I have some young children, they are over at my house and they say, "Oh, there's some toys over there. Can we play with them?" And I say, "Go nuts." So it just means enjoy yourself. You are free to do whatever you like. Go nuts. And the last of our phrases and expressions for this month is good to go. Good to go. Good to go just means you are ready. We are ready to do something. We are good to go. You will see this, maybe if people are launching a new rocket or a space shuttle or something like that. The people in mission control. So mission control is the name of the building where all the people are on the ground, and then you have the astronauts in the actual space shuttle, and the rocket guys or the people in the space shuttle are checking all of their things, and they're saying, "Okay, we're all good to go. We're ready to do something. Or if you're going to drive, you're taking a long road trip, which just means you're getting into your car and you're going to drive. A lot of people do this in America. They love a good road trip. So they get in the car and drive to lots of different places around America, but you've packed all the things in your car. Everyone is sitting in the car ready and you are good to go. Well, I hope you are good to go with this lesson. You have a lot of things to practice. Do go back and review this lesson, all the things that you're learning this month. There is a lot of great things, or there are a lot of great things that you should be reviewing. Always review all of the lessons in different ways, and I will see you back in the conversation when we're making some cookies. I look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye. Well, hello and welcome to this month's masterclass video lesson. I'm joined by
Jessica.
All right. And so this is a friend of mine, another friend here in Nagasaki, and we're going to do something interesting today. We're actually going to do some baking. If I could like direct you down here, we got a couple of things. Are we going to use these lemons as well?
No.
Or that is just decoration?
Just decoration.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Won't be lemons at all. But before we get into that, you want to explain a little bit about yourself, any background, or pertinent information might be?
Sure. Well, of course, I live in Nagasaki. I've been teaching here for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
But, of course, I love to bake. My favorite thing in the world.
And I love to eat, so I'm here.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah.
A match made in heavens.
Yes. It's much better than killing people.
That's true. Yeah, as far as things we could think of, hobbies. Maybe we'll save that for another video. Like, hobbies. It might be harmful to some people.
Yes.
But so you're from America, also.
Yes, I'm from America. I live in Wisconsin. Wonderfully cold.
Yeah, it is cold. So we're quite close to one another, actually. So Chicago is pretty close to Wisconsin.
Yeah,
it's funny. I talk about like Chicago as a city and Wisconsin as a state, but they're pretty close here. It's like right above it. Illinois is here, and Wisconsin is up here. It looks like a little hand.
Yes, it does.
Kind of. Yeah. Anyway, so what are we going to get into today? What's our cookie recipe?
Well, today we're going to do Russian tea cakes.
All right.
Yes, I owe a friend a favor. And now that she's back, I can make these and mail them to her.
Oh, so where does she live?
Ulterior motives. She lives in Korea.
Oh, so we're baking cookies for a woman in Korea.
Yes.
All right. Yes. For like in Russian cookies. All right. It's all international.
Yes.
I like
They're her favorite.
Beautiful.
They're her favorite. And
so the recipe is this here?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. It's actually Mexican wedding cookies on the container.
Oh.
But it's, fun fact, Mexican wedding cakes and Russian tea cookies are exactly the same.
Really?
Yes. The only real difference is the amount of nuts you put in it.
Oh. Well, you learn something new every day.
Indeed.
All right. Well, what do we got here? So I will be, I'm your helper chef, your sous chef.
Awesome. So
for today.
Today, I'm actually going to use coconut oil instead of butter.
Okay.
Because I have a bunch of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit healthier for you. Plus, it adds a little bit of a unique taste.
Huh. Interesting.
So, yes.
So this is actually, you call this coconut oil?
Yep.
Huh. But it's like a hard...
Yes. It has a melting point of 75 degrees. So
well, you just
right
know
now
that
it's cold.
Or...
Yeah. It actually says it on the container.
But
I do know that. Room temperature is when it starts to melt. But I actually need it like that today because it makes it, if we use melted butter in here or melted oils, it turns into like a paste when we're making the cookies, and that's not what we want.
Sure.
So, kind of a lot, but 1 cup.
Wow.
1 cup. We're making the full batch of cookies today.
Oh, okay. How many cookies does that make?
According to the recipe, it makes, let's see, about 5 dozen.
What? We're going to make 5 dozen cookies. 5 dozen cookies. All right.
Yep. All right. So with this one, the hard part is scraping it out. Now with me, I'm terrible at measuring. Absolutely terrible. So I kind of guesstimate.
Okay.
I'll use things as a guide and then just kind of go from there with what I want.
Sure.
So we just kind of scrape it out and then put it in here in my nice metal bowl.
You want me to shake this out here for you?
You can try.
Or maybe it's just easier to...
It might be easier just
That's a big cup. This is a 1 cup measure?
Yep.
That looks bigger than a cup.
Yep. 1 cup.
Wow.
255 milliliters.
Wow, this is 2/3?
Yep. It's a little bit strange.
It looks like larger than an American cup that I'm used to.
Yeah.
I thought that was 200 milliliters. It's 250?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, I don't bake it. I don't know.
I just go by what it says, so. Ugh. So it's a little bit messy. It'll start to melt because it's kind of warm in here, actually, but.
Can you just eat this straight?
You can, yeah.
What does it taste like?
Try it.
It's like coconut or whatever? Or
Yeah.
I don't want to get my hands all in that. Just like...
Ugh. Well, there's an extra spoon there.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm already getting my fingers in it. But.
Sure. Well, not that I don't mind getting dirty. I don't mind getting my hands dirty, but here.
Actually, it's fun because you can use this as a moisturizer too.
So you put it on your skin? Let me try that. Here we take like a little.
It's really good in the wintertime if you have really dry skin or for your lips.
I do. We'll do a comparison. I'll put it on the left half of my face.
Okay.
And then we'll see if the right half is like not so moisturized.
Nice. All right. But yeah, you can eat it, or...
It doesn't really taste like anything.
It doesn't have too strong of a taste.
I expected more of like a powerful... I'm not really a fan of coconut, but... actually, I like a little bit of coconut milk in my curry or something, but like Almond Joy.
Yes, I do. Oh,
so like I don't...
So... You can
That's not bad, though.
Yep, and everything that I get on my hands then, afterwards, you can just rub it right in.
Wow.
It's like a lotion.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Huh. You do that with, like, the eggs and sugar and all that, too, or just...
I do, actually.
Oh, really? That's going to be interesting when we get to that part.
I know, all kinds of fun stuff. But I won't do it with this recipe.
Okay.
Just the coconut oil. So... I don't know if you saw that. It's not quite 1 cup.
Sure. It looked like a little bit less than a cup. But...
Yeah. But approximately.
It's pretty strong, too. You bent that spoon out of shape.
Yeah. Just a little bit. I do it all the time, so. Super easy. Just bend it back. Then we need just a half a cup of powdered sugar.
Okay.
Yep. So the powdered sugar here I actually got from a base. It's really hard to find in large quantities.
Sure. Yeah, everything in... Like in Japan, trying to find stuff, you get little like a sachet of little stuff like, which is like fairly expensive.
Yeah. So with this,
well, here I can do this one, or you got to do something special with it.
Nope. You can just pour it right in, and again, if you add a little more, a little less, no big deal. I always like more because it makes it a little bit sweeter. There you go. That's pretty good. Just a little bit more.
I got quite a bit extra, like, in there, but...
Yeah, that's fine.
That should
perfect,
be okay.
Perfect.
If we only get, like, 4.5 dozen,
Yes. We should be all right with 4.5 dozen. I think my friend will be all right.
Wow.
Now, powdered sugar goes everywhere.
Do you put Kahlua in here?
I do.
Oh, okay. I thought that was, like, the after baking
No. I love baking with alcohol instead of the usual, like, vanilla extracts.
So, is that, like, it makes it taste better?
It does. So the one I have here, pumpkin spice. We used a special one for the holidays.
Huh. And you haven't opened this yet?
I have, actually.
Okay. Can I open this?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I've used it a couple of times already for baking. But it's a little bit better than vanilla.
It might be one for you, one for me.
That's how I do it. One for me, one for the bowl.
Like those old like Julia Child cooking when she'd have like a bottle of wine and be like, look.
Yep. Exactly. So the recipe calls for half a teaspoon of vanilla.
Oh.
But
you're going to use a whole cup.
I don't actually measure. I just kind of, eyeball it. So maybe a tablespoon.
Huh.
Maybe a tablespoon. As much as you want, but not too much because you don't want to have it be too liquidy.
Sure.
So from here, what we need to do is mix this up until it's kind of all blended together.
Gotcha.
So
you have a whisk?
I do. Let me just step into my kitchen quickly. We'll see how you do with the whisk.
I'm pretty strong. I can, so this is, we haven't done a cooking lesson for Mastering This Conversation in like a long while.
Yeah.
But, see, I don't want to get like stuff all over here.
That's what I do when I bake. I get stuff everywhere. Don't be afraid to make a mess.
When I was younger, I used to do quite a bit of cooking. I would have, now this is the problem though, so you're whisking and you get like everything wants to hide inside this and not get whisked.
Yep. I do have a spatula if you want to scoop it out a little bit.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So what else do we have to prepare for these? Now this is gonna make like that many cookies.
That's what the recipe says. We haven't
Are
added the
they
flour
like super
yet.
tiny or
they
whatever,
are
or?
pretty tiny. They're only about maybe an inch or so in diameter.
Really?
They're really small cookies, but we still have to add the flour.
Ah, okay.
So
I
that's
trust
the
you. You know,
basics.
this is on the package.
Yes.
I believe.
I'm slightly trustworthy sometimes.
Okay, all right.
So while you're mixing that up.
So when did you get an interest in baking? Have you always been interested in baking, or?
Yeah, actually, I've been baking probably since I was about 14 or 15.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add a little bit of salt while you're doing that.
Okay.
And the salt, you always want to add salt with like baking things. Kind of opens up the palate, so you can actually get a better taste for your food.
Still a little bit, you know.
Still a little bit chunky.
Yeah, a little bit lumpy here.
Yeah. I'm glad you're here for this.
Oh yeah.
This is my least favorite part.
I got to sing from my supper, you know.
Yeah, there you go. Usually I use my electric mixer, but
Sure. Yeah, we're being a little bit old school.
a little bit
here.
old school. It's always good. Always good. Hard work makes you appreciate the food more.
Indeed. Well, I like to burn a few calories before I eat them back up.
Indeed.
All right. So it should be like perfectly smooth, or
It should, as smooth as you can make it. So if there's a few lumps, it's all right. No big deal. But just kind of make sure everything's mixed together as much as possible.
Okay.
So
Still got some
a
coconut.
couple of big chunks. Yep.
But it's
So-
looking better.
Looking pretty good, yeah. And coconut oil
It smells
will
pretty good,
mix
too.
better
Smell
than
smell
sugar. Or better than butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always feel bad when I watch, cooking shows because the people, it's all like, well, like we get to eat this, and you
look
get
here,
nothing,
we get to
you know.
eat. Yeah.
But you can try it if
You can try. It's a super easy recipe to make at home, which is what I like. And it's not too sweet. You can kind of control the sweetness. All right. So how's it looking?
It's looking better.
All right.
I guess we'll get a little bit of those big. People might get some coconut pieces.
They'll melt out quite nicely, so it won't be too bad. All right. So from here, we are going to add 2 cups of flour.
Okay.
So this is where the bulk of the recipe goes.
Gotcha.
So I'm just going to use that same measuring cup that I used before.
Okay.
I'm not worried about contaminating things.
All right.
So I'm going to pour that right in. So with flour, same as powdered sugar, you don't want to pack it in.
Yeah.
Because then you get too much. So that's about 1 cup.
Yeah.
So you got 1 there. And mix that in. I'll let you mix that a little bit more before I add the 2nd cup. And that'll be good. I think.
Oh no,
Oh.
I don't have my apron on either. I need to get my special cooking outfit.
Oh man, I wish I had known. I could have grabbed my apron for you.
You have a special, or do you cook with any particular stuff on, or?
Pajamas.
Oh really?
Pajamas are my favorite. I do actually have an apron if I want to protect my clothing, but it was actually a gift from my sisters for Christmas a couple of years ago. So I seem to accumulate them quite frequently.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. It's kind of nice.
Well, it's good. It reminds you of people when you cook also,
Yeah. All right. So it's going to get a little bit harder from here.
All right.
This is when we're going to start using the whisk or the spatula and the scoop here.
Okay.
And towards the end, we'll kind of have to mix it a little bit by hand. So we're going to pour that in.
Now I might want to, wash my hands after it doesn't like lick.
That's
all
true.
over
That's
myself.
true. I try not to lick my hands too much
Sure.
during baking.
But when you're moisturizing your hands and
Yeah.
baking things,
Yes. All right, that's looking pretty good there.
all right. You want to try kneading this, or you want to? What do you do?
Wait, yet. I'm just gonna do a little bit of this first, and kind of scrape the edges off. And what happens with this? So once we start pressing it down and mixing it in, and using your hands, it's gonna start melting the coconut oil more.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So you can just set that spatula down for now, and I think.
Let me rinse my hands off now.
All right. So So this is actually the hardest, most time-consuming part besides mixing is getting the dough to be a dough.
I'm equal to the task.
All right.
So what do I got to do? You want me to like knead it like dough from baking or whatever, like regular
Kind
like
of.
bread?
What you're gonna do is you're just gonna scoop off to the side to make sure nothing gets stuck, and then you're just gonna press it down as much as you can, and you'll still be able to feel some of those chunks of flour in there.
Should I be like really?
Yep. You can do it as hard as you want. So what's gonna happen is the heat from your hand is gonna help melt the coconut oil. But you want to mix everything up because these cookies, they're really dry, but really moist at the same time. It's kind of a weird combination. They're really crumbly.
Huh.
So
Hey, I can't say that I've had like these kind of cookies before. You call these
Really?
called Russian tea cookies?
Russian tea cookies, yep. So we made them a lot as kids. Mexican wedding cakes, of course.
So wait. So it's a Mexican wedding cake and a cookie at the same time?
Yes. So they're called Mexican wedding cakes, but they're really just like little cookies.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
But they're called that because they're white when you finish making them. You coat them in powdered sugar, and that's where that sweetness comes in. That's how you control the sweetness.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You ever had tres leches? You know
I
what it is?
have. I have.
So that's a 3 milk cake.
Mhm.
It's like
It's like heaven in a plate, on a plate.
it is. This is one of my favorite kind
Yes,
of like
yes.
Mexican cakes.
Yeah, they use, I think, what is it? The condensed milk.
Yeah.
Cake. Yep. Some of the best things you will ever eat. So it's kind of starting to solidify there a little bit. It's still pretty crumbly. So this, like I said, this is the most time-consuming part. That we do it
Sure.
With.
Should I get in here with 2 hands? Maybe that would get it. Like,
Sure.
Mixing.
Yeah, if you don't mind. And while you're doing that, I'm actually going to get the tray ready so we can roll out the cookies and put them on there.
Okay, so this should be one ball, basically.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Now this reminds me of, doing the cooking with my family back in the days. I would actually do. I wouldn't do so much like actual cooking, but I would do some baking, which I enjoyed.
Okay.
And I remember, like, my family was always really bad about like being able to eat all the stuff first. So whoever got to the pie first or got to the cake first or whatever would get to eat it.
Oh, nice.
And we would have we would make a pie. So it would be my mom and my dad and my younger sister and I, and we would actually divide it up. We put like our name like, on the pie.
On the pie.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I would eat my like part of it first, and my younger sister would always save it for whatever.
Yeah.
But I would like cut into the bottom of it, so she would still have hers. And,
Oh, nice. I don't think we ever had that problem growing up.
yeah.
There was always plenty of pie to go around.
Now, should we like? We still got like a fair amount of powder in here.
Yep.
This should all be like
Yep, it
mixed
should
in a
all
way.
be in there. Yep. So with this part, if it does take a little longer, sometimes you can, if you're really impatient, you can heat it up a little bit in the microwave if you don't feel like waiting. I know in wintertime it's a little more difficult because it's not exactly warm.
Sure.
So, or if it does feel a little bit dry, you can always add more coconut oil to it. And that we don't need to, we can add at any time. We don't need to melt it or anything.
Sure. Yeah, it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, maybe my hands are too big to get in the bowl. Like,
I can take over for a bit if you want.
yeah, if you want to try.
Let's see how
Or if we have another bowl, I can make it my own
Yeah.
little ball, and then we can see how it goes. But
Yeah.
But now I want to like moisturize, put it on,
I
put it on
don't
my
know
face.
how
and,
it would
yeah,
do
yeah.
with your face.
Yeah.
Powdered sugar never works very well.
Yeah, I wonder what that would do.
White sugar is not so good for your face.
Sure.
But as a scrub, if you use brown sugar, it's a bit rough.
Uh-huh.
A bit rough. But it does work really nice for the rest of your body. If you use sugar
Really?
and coconut oil. Yes.
It sounds pretty sensual. You know?
Oh, indeed. Indeed. But it makes your skin super soft.
Yeah.
Super, super soft.
You know, I've never really thought about that, trying to have soft skin. I don't know, like, I've never worried about it.
Not really a guy thing.
Yeah,
not
I guess
really
I don't know. Maybe I should worry about it though. It's actually.
Well, as you get older, you know, it's something.
That's true. That's true. I'm starting to get older.
Yeah.
I can feel like I've been like standing over here begging. I stand up and it's like takes a little bit longer to adjust.
Yeah.
My spine.
Yeah, definitely. I know that feeling.
But I should, I guess, take better care of myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, never really.
Yeah, my sister makes fun of me all of the time.
Yeah.
But using food for your skin is one of the best things you can do.
Oh, so. What do you like? What do you put on your skin besides cookies?
But besides cookies, I also use honey to wash my face.
Oh, like actual, just pure honey?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
But not the stuff you buy in the store.
Ah.
Not the stuff you buy in the store. It has to be raw honey.
Ah.
So most of the stuff you buy, it's all heated.
Sure.
Heat treated so that there's no bacteria or anything helpful in it. So I'm going to add a little bit more, I think, but you can see it's kind of starting to set up, but it's still really crumbly. Mm-hmm. So it's not quite sticking together like we want it to. So I'm just going to crumble it back up. And we're going to get right in here and scoop out a little bit more for me here. And I'm just going to use that same spoon and scrape out as much as I can here. Mm-hmm. Now, because we're adding it in like this already, I'm just going to crumble up the coconut again and just stick it right in there.
Okay.
Go nuts here. But one tip for cooking in wintertime is having the heater on. Ah. I don't have it on today because it's not too cold. Sure. But
yeah, it's actually a pretty decent temperature in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it helps when you're cooking with butter and oil if it needs to be kind of soft.
Sure.
So once it starts setting up, all we have to do is roll it into balls about 1 inch, and then we're good to go. They can bake right away. So my favorite thing about this recipe is you don't have to refrigerate anything.
Sure.
You can just go right away.
So what about these, the almond slices and stuff? And does that, you like sprinkle that on the top of them, or do you not use that, or is that for something else?
Actually, I'm going to cut this recipe in half because I am going to be nice and give some to my sister. And she doesn't like nuts in them.
Ah,
so,
okay.
So only half the recipe gets nuts. But yep, we're going to mix it in there. All right.
Yeah, let me get back in here. I'll do some more of this.
All right. I'll let you do that. I'm going to get a second bowl so we can separate things.
Try to make something interesting. Maybe make a sand castle, you know, like a little cake. It
kind of has that same consistency.
It does, like wet sand, a little bit. But it's coming. We're starting to get a decent ball over here.
So then we're just gonna put these almonds in. I bought slivered almonds, and then I just crushed them up.
Oh, okay.
So the chunks are not quite the right size when you buy them. They're like chopped almonds, I believe. Mm-hmm. Not quite the right consistency that we want. So in this case, slivered almonds work better. There you go. All right. So now this looks pretty good. So now what we have to do is just break off, I don't know, maybe like a teaspoon size. So you can use an actual teaspoon if you want. Mm-hmm. I never do. Just to kind of scoop up about that much. And then from there, you want to just kind of let your hands warm it up a little bit more and then roll it into a ball. So you can crunch it up into a ball. You can actually roll it. It's up to you. Mm-hmm. As long as you get it into that ball shape. And then you can just set them up. Now, they don't melt too much. They don't change shape when you bake.
So it's supposed to be a ball?
Yep. It's supposed to be a ball. And it'll sink a little bit as they bake. But overall, it's a round shape. You can make any shape you want, though.
Ah, okay.
I prefer the ball because it looks a little bit nicer.
Sure.
And it's easier to roll. So that one's looking pretty good. The almonds will crumble in that one a little bit, so it doesn't have to be perfect.
Oh, no.
And you can place them about an inch apart on the tray. And if you want to take same thing, just take a chunk.
All right.
Roll it into any shape you want. Ball, oval, square.
I'm going to make a Batman logo.
All right.
Batman Mexican Russian cookie.
Nice.
Actually, I'm not going to be terribly creative about this. I'm going to make, if I can get it to stick together. It's actually more challenging with the almonds in it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What do you think?
So if it's that's perfect. If it's a little bit funny shaped,
I got one.
All right, you got one.
I like to feel good about that. You know, even it's important. It's important to celebrate the victories like that, even if you're doing something small. And
indeed, small victories. Small victories. In this case, at least, quite tiny.
I guess maybe this one's a little bit bigger than that.
Mm-hmm. That's all right. We just want to make them kind of like bite-sized.
Sure.
That way, when you eat them, maybe you don't feel so guilty about eating so many because they're tiny.
Sure. It's all a matter of perspective. Huh?
Yes.
So, how often do you bake? Like every week, at least you get some.
At least once a week, we try and bake something or cook something in the house. My sister and I, we both enjoy cooking and rather than going out to eat. So
that's nice.
Yeah, we're always doing something at the house.
Well, I'll be over tomorrow.
All right. I think yesterday we made tortillas.
Oh, actually made Did you make corn or flour?
Flour. Yeah. Flour is much easier to make here because we don't have a press for the corn tortillas. So it's really hard to make them thin enough to eat. Yeah. So flour tortillas it was. But for New Year's, we made gingerbread cookies, which are my favorite to make. They taste wonderful. And
did
sugar
you put
cookies.
Alcohol in those as well?
I did. I actually used that pumpkin spice.
Yeah.
And I think for same thing with my oatmeal and date cookies, I also used that pumpkin spice. Any kind of alcohol that's sweet is good. Amaretto is one of my favorites to do that with.
Do you like alcohol and chocolate?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I don't do it very often, but it is quite delicious.
Yeah. I don't really like alcohol and chocolate.
No?
Or chocolate with fruit in it. I don't really like that either.
Chocolate with fruit's not so good. Got one tiny little one there.
What?
I'm gonna do.
Now I'm trying to figure out how this is gonna make 5 dozen cookies. I mean, I
think the recipe lied to us, to be perfectly frank. Because there's no way that's 5 dozen.
Does dozen still mean 12, or is that...
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Unless I missed something in school. I'm going to steal a couple of these here.
Go ahead. You can take half of this if you want. I mean, we're going
to...
And you can eat this raw.
You
right?
can, yep. There's
but it probably doesn't have much...
It won't have much of a taste to it. It'll be a little bit sweet, but not too sweet. But yeah, there's no egg in it, so you can eat it raw. I know most people don't like to eat things with raw egg in it, but...
Are these fairly healthy? Well, I don't know, maybe you can't call this a healthy cookie, but...
It's not as unhealthy. It's a little bit better because I'm using coconut oil in it. And there's not so much sugar in it. But it is a white flour base, so it's not terribly healthy for you.
All right, well, that's
delicious.
Gets 25.
That works for me.
So this is about 2 dozen and an extra one, but...
And a couple extras. But so what we're going to do now is just pop these into the oven for, let's see, bake 15 minutes until lightly browned.
All right. So, well, we'll put them in the oven, and then we'll see you back when we pull them out.
Yep. Yes.
So what did you do after we took them out of the oven? Since we kind of skipped that part of the video.
Yeah. When we took them out of the oven, I let them cool off for about 5 minutes.
Or I should say you took them out.
I
did nothing. I relaxed.
I did it. You relaxed.
Bad guest.
But let them cool for about 5 minutes. And then you have to have a bowl of powdered sugar. Just toss them in till they're all covered. And then just put them on your plate and you're good to go.
All right.
Super easy.
Let's see how many we can eat in 1 minute.
All of them. All of them.
Here we go. Just tip it back. And we've got some tea. What kind of tea do we have here?
We have ginger chai tea today.
Cheers.
Cheers. Be careful, it's hot. But it tastes pretty good.
It does. I like tea.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite drink.
Yeah.
I like the way it smells. It's always got a good aroma, but then I feel disappointed when I drink it because it doesn't have like as nice of a.
You gotta breathe when you drink.
That's good. Maybe you're supposed to like drink it with your nose, like.
You could try. The smell would definitely be.
It would be stronger.
It would be.
Well, let's try these. You want to try the first one?
I will. I'm gonna take the one right on top of the pile.
That's a good looking cookie right there.
It's wonderful.
Now, don't cough or laugh on me and like shoot the whole like powder on me.
That would be pretty funny.
How does it taste?
Pretty awesome.
It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you feel better having made it yourself and you try it and you're like, yes, I can feel the goodness?
Yes. It's a very satisfying feeling.
All right. Now, this is it's still pretty warm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
They're still warm, not too hot, so you can still eat it.
Yeah.
But be careful because the powdered sugar will go everywhere.
All right, here we go.
What do you think?
That's pretty good.
Yeah?
That's all right. Yeah.
Not too sweet, just a little bit.
I'm going to use the other half of it on my skin. On my face.
Yeah. You could try. Might not be so good for your face after baking. But...
It's like the consistency of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of creamy a little bit. It gives the coconut oil, but I'm happy to look at it. Even on my finger right, it's kind of melting into it's becoming a part of me.
Yeah.
It's moisturizing my hand right here. Actually, I think.
Yeah.
You can see right there where it's melting into me, but.
Yeah, that consistency is really nice when you use powdered sugar instead of regular grain sugar. It makes it a little bit of a smoother texture. A little bit creamier, so it's much, much more fun to eat.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, like last time when we did this, I feel bad for you. You can't enjoy these lovely cookies over here, but... Well, since I don't want to take up all of your time, you know,
yeah.
Do you have any advice, any particular recipes you recommend people make?
Well, these are pretty easy, and you can find a recipe anywhere.
They are pretty easy.
Yep. Only a few ingredients.
And we bake these in a toaster.
Yeah, we bake these in a toaster oven, so super easy. You don't need a real oven at all. I do all of my baking in a toaster oven. Yeah. But don't be afraid to try something in your toaster oven. It's a good experience.
Sure.
Even if it fails, it probably still tastes good.
Especially if you're living in a different country and maybe you miss a little taste of home.
Yes. So it's always nice to have a little taste of home, and you can always make something pretty close to it. Yes.
Very good. Well, we're going to see how many of these we can eat. And we're going to enjoy the rest of this tea here.
Cheers.
All right. We'll be back in just a moment for the special mission homework assignment for this month. But we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this month's masterclass lesson. I hope you enjoyed all of the lessons. It was a lot of fun to bake some cookies with Jessica, and they were really tasty. I feel bad that I was eating in front of you and I could not offer you some cookies as well, but hopefully with this month's special mission homework assignment, you can go out and do some interesting things as well and not share them with me. Wouldn't that be nice? So you can make your own cookies or something, or, do something like eat some shrimp that I don't like doing anyway. So, your special mission homework assignment for this month, what I'd like you to do is, even if you can't do this in English, what I'd like you to do is to try taking a class in something, a physical class if you can. If you're, living in your local community, it doesn't matter where you are, you should have other people that teach various things. So go learn, take a class, try yoga, or, try doing anything, but something different than what you normally do. Most things have a, like a special trial that you could do where you could go for just one time and see what something is like. Now, the reason I'm asking you to do this, even if it's not in English, because what I want you to do is get your mind thinking out of the habits that you normally have. So you have to start doing things differently to get your mind thinking in a different way and starting to understand more English. So to start changing the way you think, what I'd like you to do, even if you can't do this in English, again, is to try taking a class in something. So maybe you take a cooking class, or you go learn how to bake something, or you go learn how to, do some gardening, or whatever that thing is. Ideally, you can do this thing in English, Because what you really should be doing is not looking for English conversation partners. You need to be looking for people that are actual native speakers or other people that just enjoy speaking English, and then connecting with those people. So doing something that you already enjoy doing, but in English. So don't go online looking for English conversation partners. I see that every day on YouTube. Like even on my own videos, people are like, hey, let's meet and have a conversation practice. Like, don't try to meet other non-native speakers and practice. If you can, meet native speakers and practice with them, but by connecting with them either online or in person through something like taking a class. So your first step should be taking a class in something. It doesn't matter, but it should be just something different than you normally do. And then the next thing above that, if you can find it, is taking that class in English. So look for some people that are offering things. Maybe you live in America. Don't look for the English class. Like, go look for how to do something, but regular native speakers would be doing that thing. And then just talk to them normally, like you're in the group. And when you do that, instead of saying, hey, will you practice English with me, or will you correct my mistakes all the time? People will not be as excited to do that. They're really just trying to make friends like you are. So after you develop a relationship with them, you can ask them more questions about how do I do this, or did I say this correctly or something. But you should really be just trying to enjoy speaking and getting into the habit of doing something different as opposed to speaking in your own language. Well, that's it for your special mission homework assignment and for your lesson set this month. Do enjoy the bonus lessons as usual. Go back and practice everything. Really, I'm giving you everything you need to get fluent, but it's up to you to actually use the things and then go out and do the homework assignments. That's what's really going to help you improve. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you again next month with your next Master English Conversation lesson set. Bye-bye. Okay, well, how was that? Did you enjoy just watching some explanations? Really what I was doing there, it's the exact same thing I do with helping my daughter or helping anyone else, even some friends of mine. If we learn a new word, we connect it through stories, and we try to find some way to connect directly with the information rather than just trying to take a word by itself or a phrase by itself and then try to memorize that thing with some flashcards. So we use stories, and again, this is how you connect instantly at this level up here. If you did enjoy that and you'd like to learn more, so again, you want to see how I can help you do this. Basically, to do a system like this by yourself, it's almost impossible because you have to know what this information is, you have to know what the most important information is, and you have to be able to know how to teach it to yourself instantly, which is basically impossible to do. So you can find a teacher who can help you do it, or you can get someone like me that's going to do it personally with you, which is basically impossible as well. There are, millions of people who watch my videos, and it's just impossible for me to help them all. And for the people I could help, it would be really, really expensive, many thousands of dollars for me to go and try to help someone learn. But the next best thing is for me to take these ideas and put them into a very simple package called the Fluency Course. And this is how you can learn more about moving from this level to this level up here. So if you understood this video, and you're over here and you want to get to this level and you enjoyed this example of how you could learn like that, just click on the link in the upper right-hand corner of this video and you can learn more about the Fluency Course. If you have any questions, or as a teacher or a student, I'd love to learn more about how I can help you. But really, this is the most important information I can give you about why students struggle, how you can actually change that as a student or a teacher, and how really it is easy to do it if you just learn the right way. So think about it as an instant language learner. Be an instant language learner and not a second language learner. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.